Pat Cummins has just been ridiculous, hasn't he? And what is it about Joe Root? What is it? I mean, he must have nightmares about Pat Cummins. What is it about Joe Root's game that just doesn't set up when he's having to face Pat Cummins?
I think it's that corridor just outside the fourth, sort of between fourth and fifth stump, where Pat's angle is unbelievable. It's a bit like Courtney Walsh's angle. It's a brilliant angle. Andrew Flintoff had a bit like that angle. Mine wasn't as sort of stand up. But if you're batting and you're on off stump, Pat Cummins comes into the stump. So the angle of the seam. Try to think. I haven't got a ball here. The angle of the seam's coming towards you, sort of towards the off stump. And as it's coming towards the off stump, it just holds its line. And you don't want it to go big. As a bowler, you don't want it to go big, because when it goes big, looks great, flies through the keeper, and all the slips go, yeah, well bowled, yeah, fantastic. At the end of the day, really, it's a meaningless ball. But Pat has this ability, Courtney Walsh had this ability to move it slightly. And you're talking like what, width of a bat? Width of a bat's like that. You only want it to move that much, and it catches the outside edge of the bat. So once it moves that much, which it has done, and it's angling towards off stump, and you've got a vulnerability to push your hands at it, which modern day players do. Harry Brook does it a lot. Ollie Pope is always doing it. Zach Crawley does it a lot. Once you start pushing at the ball, and that's what I talk about technique in the modern day game, once you start pushing at the ball, you're in big trouble. And I think because Pat's angle, where he lands just left of mid crease on the bowling line, and his ability to angle it towards off stump and then just hold it a fraction, even on a flat pitch when the seam's dead, he has this ability to bring this angle into play. And that for me is where Joe's probably at his most vulnerable, because sometimes he's vulnerable with a ball going onto off stump. So because he's vulnerable with a ball going to off stump, he tries to get a little bit further out to cover that. But unfortunately, if it moves just slightly, he brings his outside edge into play. For me, it's a world-class bowler bowling at a world-class batter who's got a slight vulnerability in and around that sort of fourth, fifth stump. And Joe's had that. He's always had that. And you could see in his body language, and you could see at the end when he punched his bat, Joe probably knew, as the ball was probably that far away from him, that he knew he was going to nick it. It's like we talk about the centre forward knowing that the ball's going in the net before everybody else. The ball's going for six before anybody else. I think Joe, unfortunately, sees that little passage in slow motion and knows that he's nicked it. And unfortunately, there's always been a little air of vulnerability around that off stump for Joe Root when he faces a bowler who can just hold that sort of line off stump with the angle coming from the mid-crease area.